So welcome to the first webinar of 2022. My name is Nicole. I'm one of the research liaison librarians at the University of Newcastle Library, and joining me today to help out is Gemma. So thank you very much, Gemma, greatly appreciated. I'd also like to make an acknowledgement of country. So the University of Newcastle acknowledges the traditional custodians of the lands within our footprint areas, the Wabakal Nations, Darkinjung Nation, Biripi, Worimi Nations, Warrawoona and Eora Nations. We acknowledge the elders past, present and emerging, and the knowledge that they have. So today what we'd like to do is talk a bit about what my assignment needs. So how we've set this up is we have, I guess we'd have to describe it as the world's craziest university assignment based on what you might be asked to find. Not too sure what I'm actually studying to do this assignment, but we've got some queries. So what I'm going to do is basically spend some time on the library website and go through and show you how to find some stuff. So Gemma's going to help me out by asking me a heap of questions about where I might find some bits and pieces. So let me. So I'm hoping you can still share my screen.
Yes.
See my screen? Awesome. So to start with, the way I get onto the university library is simply typing UON library. Brings up this page. I click here. So Gemma, what's our first question? What do I need to help you find to start with?
Well, Nicole, my first question is about finding a book. I need to find a Dewey number for business, and it's Environment by David Barron, published in 2013.
Fabulous. Okay, so what the best place to look for that, given it is a book, is on the front page of our library website. So I've just scrolled down a fraction, we hit library search. So if I put in there business and its environment, and then I'll click search and we'll see what we can find. Sweetie's catching up with the world. Fabulous. And it comes up right at the top, and it's 2013, which was the edition that you were looking for. If I click on the record to give a little bit more information here, scroll down, can check again that it's the right title. And this gives me all these cool numbers here. So we're basically looking at the Newcastle City campus, where you would find it, and you'd be looking under the section of Q658.408 BARO. And it's in the library, so it could be easy enough to find. Okay, so does that answer that question?
Yes, but I'm wondering what the call numbers actually mean and how I would find it.
Okay, so the call numbers are where you would find it on the shelf. So often on a lot of the shelves at the end or on the bottom of them or somewhere, they'll tell you where the book actually is. So that's what you're looking for on the bottom of the spine of the book. It's just a case of scanning along, and what I would do is write this number down on a piece of paper or in your phone, and then walk along the shelf and see what and basically match it up. And the fact that there's at least 5 copies of this means that they're all should be all together, and it should be fairly easy to find a copy of this particular item, which you could then use a self-check machine to borrow.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, next.
All right, our next question, Nicole. I want to find an ebook. So I'm looking to find the title of Chapter 5, Nasty Business by Mark McKenna.
Okay, so with this one, there's another way we can do it. We can also put the author in. So I've put in the title of the book, and I've just put the surname of the author. Alrighty, let's do a search for this one. Gone back again to the front page. Awesome. So here we go. It's a 2020 book. It's the ebook as you requested. So to work out what Chapter 5 is, what I need to do here is click on that link at the top, and we'll open him up. The big thing about this is because it's one of our items, our electronic items, you will actually need to log in. If it does pick up a screen, I'm already logged in because I've done a bit of work this morning. You'll just need to put in your student number and your password. Okay, so here's our book, Nasty Business, the Marketing and Distribution of Video Nasties. Okay, and we're after Chapter 5. So that would be trailers, tagline and tactics, selling horror films on video and DVD. Okay, and you've got access to this. You could download it as a PDF. You could click on this and read it online, and it's about 26 pages.
Wonderful.
Okay.
All right. The next kind of resource that I want to find is a little bit different. So I want to find a journal article, and I'm wondering how many Australian climate change articles exist if I were using Environment Complete in the Environmental Science LibGuide. And if you put on the filters, full text, peer reviewed, published between 2016 and 2022.
Alrighty, okay. So I might get you to repeat a little bit of that as we go through. So to find our subject guides, what we do is you come down on the front page and they're under access. Okay, if I click on access, scroll down a bit. So these subject guides are basically lists of databases and other resources that are really helpful for your studies. So if I then scroll down here, so we're looking for the environment one. So if I scroll down a little bit further, environmental and life sciences be the one that, based on what you're talking about climate change, what we're looking at here. And then, so this is my, the environmental and life sciences thing. I would then come to the environmental studies tab, because that's what we're looking for, and click on him. And then we've got Environment Complete at the top here. Okay, so this is one of our databases. So it's a collation of a whole lot of journal articles published by various journals that we've got access to here. So if I click on this guy, and then we're looking for climate change. Okay, put climate change in the top. I'm going to put Australia in the bottom. And then I've got the option to pick Australia, Australians, or Australia. So let's go with that one. And I'll hit search. That just helps broaden it depending on how it's been described in the article. So let's make sure that we cast the net as wide as possible and see how we go. Yippee, at least I've had a bite. I've got 16,500, but that could be for a lot longer than what you're after. Okay, so the other criteria were, could you remind me please, Gemma, what the other criteria were?
I want to find articles that were published between 2016 and 2022.
Okay.
That are peer reviewed.
2016, okay. Sweetie only does one thing at a time, so I'll put the year in and we'll let Sweetie update to see how we go. It's a little bit over, just a bit under 8,000 peer reviewed. It's the next one.
Full text.
Okay, and full text is the last. Alrighty, click on that one as well. And we've got, have you taken the full text one, Sweetie? No, let's try that. Awesome. So we've got a little over 7,500 there of that. You may also then, because that's still quite a few, you may also like to have a look down a little bit further and use your filters to do that. Geography could be another one. So here's your, if you just go with Australia, where it's picking up the actual geography, we end up with about 824. Again, these filters can be incredibly helpful and also very powerful. So here too, you might, that was obviously a fairly broad search. You might be looking at something a little bit more specific when you see there's still 810 articles to read. So what you might look at here is actually narrowing that search a little bit further. So you might be just interested in eucalyptus, which is trees, or you might be looking at something like tropical cyclones and how they've impacted and their role and their link with climate change. So very much up to you. You just need to click down the side here, update, and that will actually give you an even narrower options to look at. So that just gives you a bit of a picture about how you might go about filtering in a database. And if you go too far, you end up with too few results. What you can do is come back up here and click on these grey crosses, and it will then take you back to the previous step. So if you feel that you've been, I guess, a little too harsh with some of the decisions that you've made, you can always go back and have another go. Okay, so that help you with that one?
It does, thank you. So my next question is about finding newspapers.
Okay.
And I'm wondering how many databases does the library have that contain newspapers?
Awesome. Okay, so again, we come down to here, we come down and have a look under access. I'm trying to show you some ways that mean you don't have to kind of remember what the individual databases are called, because I certainly don't remember all the ones. We've got lots of them. So if I go the other way, one way we've actually classified the databases that have newspapers in under a particular list. So the way to find that is coming under databases by title. Then if I come up here and have a look under the databases here, what you'll see is there's a newspaper one. So if I click on that, that will just pick up the 9 databases that we have that actually contain newspapers. So we're after Australian ones. Okay,
Yes.
so if I scroll down a little bit, we've got ANZ Newsstand, and then there's a little bit of text underneath that tells you what's actually in them, what sort of what areas they cover and what you might expect to find. So this one's got Australian, ANZ Newsstand has Australian and New Zealand newspapers, and then we've got under it Australian newspapers online, 700 newspapers. So I hope you're keen to read some newspapers for that one. Let me just scroll down a little bit further to see if there's anything else that we might use here. Not that obviously mentions Australian newspapers, but there are potentially other sources. So that to answer that question that you've got, in terms of the really obvious ones, I'd say there are 2. There's the ANZ Newsstand and Australian newspapers online as a good starting point. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So if I wanted to find something like statistics using the ABS website, how can I find out if the 2021 census data has been released yet? And if it hasn't been released yet, when will it be?
Okay, so again, I'd come and have a look under access. I'd also consider having a look under the subject guides here. And stats are often used by things like accounting and finance or business. So we've actually got a link under here. Then I've got a tab here on statistics. So with any of these subject guides, you're welcome to come in and have a look at them regardless of what you're studying. There may be some useful other bits of information in these. So if I have a look at the stats one, the first one here that comes up is the Australian Bureau of Statistics. So if I click on this, it then brings us up to here. Okay, this is quite nicely laid out in terms of we're going to have a look at the census stuff here. And then the question was about the 2021 census. So in terms of here, what we're looking to do is we're actually wanting to know about releases as opposed to what the census actually was, which was held in August last year. Okay, so I'd have a look under here and see what we can actually find. So it's going to tell us the time release time frames that they're looking at, and dictionary. Don't want so much want the dictionary. We don't even have to click any further. It says here the census data will be released in a staged approach from June 2022. So they're not going to release it all in one go. They're going to put out little bits and pieces as they over the next, I think it's 12 months or so. For a little bit more information, let's click on the link and it will actually tell you what specific areas and when they will actually be released.
Okay, thank you for that, Nicole. Moving on to another kind of source, I want to find grey literature. So I want to find 3 sources of government and policy documents in the Social Science Grey Literature Guide.
Okay, fabulous. So in terms of grey lit, anyone can use it from that side. It might be relevant for your assignment. So by all means, please consider having a bit of a look. So under that one happens to fall under the researcher support stuff, guides from that side. And what we're having a look down here for, and then if I have a look under the research guides here, and if I scroll down, what I've got here is the social sciences grey literature one.
It might be a good idea as well, Nicole, just to explain to everyone what grey literature is in case they're not already familiar.
Yep, okay. So grey literature is it's not necessarily totally peer reviewed, so it's not necessarily put out to have comments put on it or comment before it's published. It's often the reports that are done by government. It can be reports or ideas put together by what we call think tanks, so people like the Lowy Institute, the Australia Institute, those sorts of things. It could be a consultancy report done by for a government agency. So it's often got a lot of ideas, some good thoughts in it. It can be a collation of data. It's a whole lot of bits and pieces and interesting formats and ideas from that side. I guess one of the challenges with finding Grade-Lit is actually where you can go to actually source it, because it can be on a number of different websites. And so what can be really, really helpful is actually being able to find a place that like an indexing website or something where it actually collates it all for you to make it a lot easier to find. So we're after government and policy stuff from memory, Gemma, is that correct?
Yeah, so I want to find three sources of government and policy documents.
Okay, so the tabs along the top here, we've got government and policy, we've got repositories, we've got web resources, and we've got some databases. Let's make it easy to start with. Not saying you're not welcome to have a look at some of the other options along here. And there's also theses as well, so that might be a place to have a look. But if I just scroll down here, a really nice one is actually the Analysis and Policy Observatory. They actually will send you an email a couple of times a week if you'd like to sign up, and they can tell you what's just been released. And it's a very, very broad range of topics, anything from business related stuff through to some of the government reports that get released, through to issues like, for Australia, International Women's Day, there's can be some issues around those sorts of things as well. So that would be certainly one that I would suggest that's worth having a look. Then depending on what else you're interested in, what sort of scale, you might like to come down and have a look at the Open Government New South Wales, which has a lot of the stuff locally at a more local level. And then the other one that can be quite interesting and possibly a little bit overlooked too is the state archives. They can actually have some interesting stuff if you're looking for some of the more historic things, depending on what you're after. So, which is the New South Wales State Government Archives. They've got some very interesting stuff on their website and what they've actually picked up and collected over the years as well. But there's all sorts of things here. As you can see, there's a Closing the Gap one. So if you're looking at for things like the Human Rights Commission, that sort of stuff too. So there's a lot of options where you can find stuff.
Okay, thank you. Now, the next kind of source that I'm interested in trying to find is Australian standards. And we often get a lot of questions about these from students. So I want to know how I can find the Australian Standards database.
Yep.
And then I'll have a specific question for you once we've found that.
Okay, so there are several ways to do it. We'll stick with it, probably the easiest one. Often they can be associated if you're doing a particular line of study. So for example, if you're into engineering, then they can be also associated with some of the subject guides. But if you're, the other way to go about it is to have a look through the A to Z of databases. And Australian Standards is a fairly, I guess, known database title. So if we scroll down in the A's to all the way down the bottom here, ooh, keep going. It is right at the bottom. So here we go, Australian Standards. So the big thing here to remember is that there's a couple of things. One, you will need to create yourself an account to access the standards. So before you can get into the database, you will need to create a standard. Basically, that's to preserve copyright. There's been some copyright breaches that have happened with the sharing of standards in recent times. And so this is how the platform has I guess, dealt with that. So what happens is that when you create yourself an account, it imprints on the standard that you print out your name and when you actually did it. So please respect copyright and create yourself an account. As I've already done that, I'll skip through to the final step. The other thing that we ask you to do, please, is, as you'll note here, we've only got 6 concurrent users. So when you've finished, please make sure you log out so that the next person can get on, because often everyone wants to get on and get their standards at the same time. Alrighty, so let's see if Sweetie will work for me this morning.
And while we're waiting for that to load, can you just tell me a little bit about what subject areas often use Australian standards?
Engineering is one. The sciences, in terms of some of the lab work, can be another in terms of the processes, but it also can be things like business as well, because what you've got is so record keeping standards. So it can actually be quite a range of things that you may actually be after. And So by all means, the other thing too is I guess with the Australian standards, the other thing to understand too is that there's some Australian-based standards, and then in some cases we use international standards. So if they've got ISO in front of them, that's the international standards that we're looking for. If they've got AS, it's called Australian standards. So that's, and both of them can apply, but in a lot of cases, like for example, I'm thinking with electricity, we do 240 volts here in Australia, but other people have a different types of voltage. So the standards here have to reflect the 240. Otherwise we might, we might get this slight bit of electrocution happening, which is not what we want to see, happen. So it depends on what it is, as depend what standard is actually used or adopted or adapted for Australian conditions.
Okay. So I want to find the standard number for hydrogen detection apparatus, stationary applications, and can I download it from the database?
The answer, if it's available, then we should be able to do that. So the title was called Hydrogen
Detection apparatus, stationary applications.
Start with that and see whether, after I can spell properly, that would be really helpful. I think it's 2 P's would go a long way to helping my cause. Okay, so we've got stationary applications. Was that the one we were after?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so it's current. The other thing too that we need to think about, and this has got some nice examples here, superseded. That means that there's a new standard involved for that particular one. So unless you've got a situation where you're looking at old stuff and you need to consider the older standards, please make sure that she's current. Okay, so what I need to do here is click on him, and that will then tell me as to whether we can actually download this one. With this particular one, yes, we can, because on the on the right-hand side top corner there, it says download. So we'll be able to download this particular standard. Yep.
Okay, great. So now we're into the bonus round of questions, because we've breezed through that content quite quickly. So I'd like to know a bit about finding magazines, Nicole. So I'd like to find Harvard Business Review and the January/February issue.
Okay. So because we're looking for a particular one, what I would do is go back to library search. We've actually got a specific title we're looking for here, and I will put in Harvard Business Review. Yep. Mm-hmm. Here's one I obviously prepared earlier.
Yeah.
So if I click on him,
yeah.
What this will do is it'll take us to the whole record. Okay, it won't take us to the January one first. We've got to do a bit of clicking for that. So if I have a look at, so it's an e-journal. Awesome. It means it's online, so we don't have to leave our comfy chairs at the moment to access this one. So if I click on here, I can then, it's actually under the business one. So if we go for this, Sweetie should then take us to the databases. So fabulous. So here we've got the record. This is the record for the full journal. So we've got absolutely everything here that we've got access to. So it comes down to, well, back into the 1970s. Fabulous. Okay, so to find what we're after, which is a January, February one for make it 2022. Let's keep it current. So if I expand on here, it then gives us the January, February 2022 one, and at the moment she's just loading. And if I scroll down below the results here, you'll see all the articles that have been included. One thing to, sorry, yes, Gemma?
I was just going to say, I'd like a specific article within there. I want one that covers, should you compromise your founding principles for faster growth?
Okay, you got a couple of options. You can search if you like, or given the fact that it's not too many here, there might be some other stuff you find of interest as you do that. I'm just going to scroll down and see what I can have a look for down the bottom. Disruptive. May have been in a different issue to this one. Oh. Corporate. Oh.
I think it was just above. Just go a little bit further back up. There we
Here
go.
we go. Yeah, sorry, I didn't notice it was a case study. Okay, so for this one, we can download the full PDF, but what I suggest we have a look at first is we click on this link. What it will do is it will give us, because if you noticed in that, before I did click on that link, the abstract about the article is cut off just a fraction, which is basically the abstract is a summary of what's to come in the article. So I'd have a look at this, and if it looks good in terms of what you want, then you're able to download the full PDF from here. So all yours from that side. Yep. The other thing too is that if you're looking for other sources of information to complement what you've got here, there's some subject titles here that may be very helpful in terms of other things you might like to put in as search terms into a database as well, or into library search. So you've got quite a few options there. This one is actually, interestingly enough, based on something in the Philippines. So yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So the next thing that I'd like to look for is company data. So I want to use MarketLine, and I want to actually find BHP.
Okay. So I would come and have a look under access, and because you're actually given the title of the database you're looking for, you could get into the A to Z database of titles. But how about we have a look through the subject resource guides and go in that way? End up at the same point. So that's because we're looking at, so we were looking at BHP, we're looking at something business related. So I'd come into here and have a look at the business options. So we're looking at company data. So this is the other nice thing about if we come in this way, we can see that there's a few other options for us to have a look at as well. So MarketLine is not the only option that we've got. We're going to have a look at MarketLine today. So if I now click on MarketLine, waiting for Sweetie to load. Okay, and we're looking for under companies. I click on companies along the top here. So you've got a range of options about the way you can search. Just waiting for Sweetie to catch up with the world. And we are looking for here, BHP. And in particular, I'm looking for that. I click on search. Anyone who follows the business world would know that BHP is an Australian-based company, and that gives you a bit of a snapshot in terms of what the company is about. So if we click on here, what that will then do is it picks up a lot more information for us. This has got a huge amount of information. So what particular piece of information are we looking for here, Gemma?
I'd like to find out about threats to the company.
Okay, so to me, that fits under the SWOT analysis. So if you do business, you could make that link reasonably easily. So if I click on the SWOT analysis at the bottom here, but just before I do, you can see that there's some more information here about the fact that they're on the ASX, so they're on the stock exchange here in Australia, how many employees they've got, a little bit of a snapshot of the company. So if I come down and have a look at the SWOT analysis here, so we're looking for, so here we go, very nicely presented too. So you've got strengths, weaknesses, threats, and opportunities. So we're looking for 2 threats to the company. So you can say operational risk is one. The coronavirus has been a huge problem for them because of some of their FIFO workers. And then you've got also the stringent environmental regulations. So you've got changes, I'm guessing, in Europe, certainly with climate change, people are starting to clamp down on things. So, and their main industry is mining stuff out of the ground. So it's not necessarily compatible with climate change, but that's okay.
Okay, and if I wanted to find out who their peers are in Australia, so who their sort of competitors are.
Yep, so if I come under peers on the left-hand side here as well, and wait for Sweetie to catch up and show us that piece of information. Here you go, here's a list of companies down the side here. And in terms of, because we're looking for Australian staff, on the far right-hand corner is some of the is where their headquarters are, is where the headquarters of that particular company is. So if we're looking for Australian based ones, we could say that Fortescue Metals is one, and MMG is another example that you could include there as part of your answer.
Okay, wonderful. Now, the last thing that I want to find out about is quite different to anything that we've looked at so far. I want to find children's literature, and I need to find 3 children's books on 3 different topics to review and critique.
Okay, so that to me sounds like a really good one that we go and have a look in the English, in the subject resource guides. So with this particular one, what's happened is that it's under education. One of our colleagues has actually put together basically a lovely long list for you about literacy and reading resources. So on the left-hand side here, there's some guided reading stuff on the right, but on the left-hand side here, there's actually, if you click on any of these themes, so there's all sorts of different themes. So pick your poison, basically pick what you're interested in. There's all sorts of options there. And then underneath here, there's actually a list of where you might find them on the shelf, which is really quite helpful, because often with books, it can be very hard to know without actually opening them up what they're talking about. Their titles may not reflect what their content is. So it's in the children's section. So here's one we're looking at sleeping as a theme for this particular one. So there's 72 titles. So with any luck, you'll be able to find 3 out of that. So again, with all of them, there is a list. So if we're looking for one on behaviour, there's another list here about what you could actually have a look at. What I'd suggest you do, coming back to the results, is if that one appeals to you in terms of when you read the little bit of description underneath, if that appeals to you, I would take a note of the call number. So then when you go to the shelf, you can find your 9 books in one go. And you don't have to keep going back and forth. You can, and I'd also make a bit of a note of the title, just so in case that there's something a little bit similar in terms of the call number, it just makes it a little bit easier to clarify that was the one that you were after, in case it has a slightly different topic in it.
That's really good to know, because yeah, like originally I would have done something like, if I was searching for, you know, a juvenile fiction book on teeth or something, I would say like juvenile fiction and teeth, and just kind of search that, you know, in the catalogue. So there's sort of that option where you can still sort of do a generic kind of search, but that's a really useful tool, Nicole.
It's fabulous. Yeah. Yep. Well done to Tracy, who put all the stuff and collated all the stuff together into something that's incredibly friendly to sort of view and use.
All right, wonderful. Well, that's come to the end of our sort of pre-prepared questions that we had today. I'm just wondering if any of the participants of the webinar have any questions before we start to wrap up. You can ask a question in the chat if you'd like to ask us anything while you've got us here. And that's fine if you don't have any questions either. Okay, I seem to be very quiet today.
That's okay, but please don't be scared to ask. As you can see, we've played in many things, and we can turn our hand to finding bits of information or making some suggestions for you. So please don't be strangers on that front. The big thing, I guess, about today is what we mentioned that because we had a chance to get through all of that side of things, which was awesome. So the other thing too is what we've talked about today is a lot of the, I guess, the quality stuff that you'll find in terms of from an information perspective. But the question comes up about is like websites and news media and podcasts and some of the other stuff, social media. Now, so how do we actually deal with that sort of stuff? So to me, that's potentially the next step. So if you want to know some more about that, we have another webinar coming up on the 3rd of May that's going to look at how you might evaluate those particular types of sources for your assignments. So A, can you use them? And then B, what are some of the tips and tricks that you can get, how you might be able to get around using some of the stuff, or at least the ideas in as part of your assignment. But as mentioned as well, the big thing that we need to think about too is that What we've got is also some help on the library website. So what I'll do is, just before we finish up, is show you about where you might be able to find some help if you get stuck. And please, we love to have questions. It's always interesting to going hunting to see what people, as their assignments and what they're up to. So if I come down, scroll down on this front page here, is called Ask the Library. So you've got various options here about how you might ask the library. So one thing that's open, and if it's green, there's someone behind there that will actually answer your basic question for you, is library chat. So please put your question in, and if the Brains Trust at the front can't help out, then there's some Brains Trust behind the counter, and we'll help in and chip in about some of the questions to help out and help answer those. If you're always welcome to send us a question. If that is read and we've gone home for the night, please don't let that deter you. Please, you're welcome to email us a question. We're happy to do that. Then we've also got the Book a Librarian service, which runs from 11 till 3 Monday to Friday, and then 10 till 2 on the weekends. So what you can do here is, and you've got the option to book a session, a 30-minute session with a librarian, either on campus, all campuses except Sydney. Sorry, things are a bit busy down here at the moment, or you can go online. So please, by all means, take those opportunities up. We're more than happy, and we love to hear what people are up to. So you'll get an email, it's a Zoom link. So you just need to make sure that you can access that, and all good to go.
Yeah, and just keep in mind that on that booking system as well, it's the same booking system that we use for special collections in the University Archives Department. So please take care when you're booking and make sure you select the correct kind of appointment too. Whether that's, you know, the Book a Librarian, and whether or not you want on campus or online via Zoom. I think it's also worth noting, Nicole, too, like the kinds of questions that we sort of deal with when it comes to Book a Librarian. So that can be sort of more complex kind of questions where, you know, we're going in depth into a question where you are struggling to find information for an assignment, and we can suggest some places that you might want to look to find that information. We can give you guidance on your referencing, and like you were saying before, like we can, you know, give you some assistance if you're not sure if something that you found is appropriate to use in a university assignment as well.
The other big one that I've seen a number of the questions come through is battling with databases, how you actually manage to persuade a database to give you some information that you're after for your assignment too. Yeah. So yeah.
Yes, accessing all that lovely content.
And we've got lots of it. So please, I mean, yes, Google Scholar is out there, but while you're a uni student, you've got access to all this stuff. And speaking from someone who worked in industry for a number of years, we didn't have access to this sort of stuff. Take advantage of things while you've got access to them. It's just so much easier, and it's fabulous. It's good, and it's up-to-date content as well. So in terms of wrapping up, we'd like to say thank you very much for coming along today. And what we'd like to do is just launch a poll to ask about what you thought about the webinar. Please, if you would take a couple of minutes, or shouldn't even be that long, to actually fill out the questions for us and give us some feedback, because we'd like to know whether we've answered some of your questions today, or whether it's you kind of knew all the content or everything. And it is completely anonymous, so we won't know who's answered what. So please feel free to give us some feedback and your thoughts on what today was. By all means, please, we've got a few more minutes. If you've got any questions, you're welcome to add those to the chat, and we can answer those too as we go through while we're waiting for the poll stuff to be finalised.
We've had a comment come through on the chat from someone saying thank you. It's been really helpful. So thanks for that feedback, guys. That's really useful for us to know.
Yeah. And I thought presenting this particular webinar this way might be more useful than just going through randomly finding stuff. I thought some actual questions and some real life examples might be, even if they were made up, were a little more. It's a very interesting course you're doing there, Gemma, with that collection of questions.
Yes. What can I say? I need to know a little bit of everything.
So awesome. We've had about 5 people have a bit of a look, which is great. Yep, fair call if you thought it was too simple. That's Yep. Okay, so I think we've nailed most of it, which is great to hear that we weren't too quick. I'm a bit notorious for talking quickly, so that was good. Okay, I think we have I'm just going to end the poll. I think people have had a bit of a chance to had a look at that. And there's a question in the Q&A. Let me just have a look. No, that's fine. Appreciate the live demonstration. Thank you for the comment about the live demonstration. That I thought that was more useful than just pointing out that there's stuff on the library website. Actually showing you how to find things, to me is a critical part of finding the resources. A lot of it's there, but it's not necessarily on the front page. You've got a couple of clicks and then you get to the detail of what you're after. So no problem. Alrighty, if there's no other questions or comments, thank you very much for coming along this morning, and you'll get a recording as a result of turning up, and anyone else who's unable to make it will also get a recording of the webinar, and we look forward to seeing you for some of the next ones. The next week's one is now we've found some stuff. The next Evel Knievel is how you reference it. So you best join Kylie next week and she'll talk to you about our new referencing tool or some assistance in terms of how you might then reference the items that we found today in our webinar. So thank you very much for coming along, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Awesome.
All right. Thank you, Nicole.
Thanks for helping out.
You're welcome. Not a problem. Bye.
Good luck with all your stuff today.
Yes.